Black Millionaire CEO shocked after canceling deal in front of white family. The Bington mansion was a fortress of wealth. Marble pillars reaching to a ceiling that seemed to swallow sound. Walls hung with paintings as old and cold as the tension in the room. Danielle Givens sat at the head of the long dining table, her posture rigid, her sharp eyes scanning faces that mirrored polite smiles but simmered with something darker, barely held back, like thin ice cracking beneath fancy shoes. The chandeliers spilled light in golden pools over crystal glasses and silver platters, but none of it reached the cold pit growing in Danielle's stomach. Every chuckle, every well-mannered nod, dripped with layers of microaggressions she had learned to spot before the words were even spoken. Comments about the way she carries herself, jokes that landed just a beat too long, glances that darted her way before flitting off like guilty secrets. She felt their measuring eyes weigh her, not as a part, but instead, it felt like walking a tightrope over a pit, filled with snakes, disguised as silk ties. Then, amid the soft clinking of silver, a seemingly harmless question sliced through the polite fog. Mr. Bington, the patriarch with a smile that never quite reached his eyes, asked how Danielle planned to keep things running smoothly once the merger was complete. His tone innocent, but the meaning clear. Danielle's smile tightened. They weren't asking about synergy or innovation. They were asking about control, about who'd hold the power behind polished doors, about whether she'd play their game. The room shifted. The air thickened with unsaid threats masked as friendly advice. Her heart hammered. The weight of every compromise, every coded insult, every moment she'd swallowed her pride, pressed down on her. Not now. Not this time. Her voice came steady but fierce. I'm not here to be the merger you control. I'm here to be the partner you respect. A hush fell. Forks paused mid-air. Eyes widened. Whispers bloomed. Shock, disbelief, outrage, the kind that stings sharper than anger because it smells of betrayal. I'm canceling the deal, she said, cutting through the room's heavy silence like a storm breaking. A beat of stunned quiet. Then gasps, sharp and low, rippled through the gathering. The polished facades cracked, revealing raw edges of resentment. Danielle felt something uncoil in her chest, a fierce, fiery pulse of indignation and hope. Her future was uncertain, maybe even threatened, but she wouldn't sell her soul, or the soul of her company, for applause that came with a price. Outside, the faint murmur of the city carried on, oblivious. Inside, a quiet war had just begun. What would come next? Allies or enemies? Collapse or revolution? The answers hung in the air like smoke, heavy, uncertain, impossible to ignore. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And while you're there, drop a powerful like. It really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, What city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence pressed down heavily in the room, a tangible entity that thrummed with tension. Danielle's heart raced, the shock of her declaration ringing in her ears, a primal drum echoing through the opulent Bington mansion. But just as the weight of her courage settled in, the lights flickered ominously, casting darts of shadow upon the faces surrounding her. And then, without warning, the grand chandelier overhead trembled, a violent jolt sending fragments of light spiraling like a shattered dream. A deafening crash resonated through the space as the heavy fixture plummeted, crashing inches from where Danielle stood. The air filled with panic, screams splintering the stunned silence. Amid the chaos, a figure emerged from the back of the grand hall, a woman draped in black, her face obscured by a veil. She moved through the throng of guests with an unsettling grace, the crowd parting as if recognizing some ancient power. Danielle felt her blood run cold, but chill, that stemmed not just from the chaos, but from an inexplicable familiarity in the stranger's presence. Dan! She squinted through the haze of commotion, desperate to discern the woman's identity. And as the veil pulled away, the features became painfully clear. Her own mother, Claire Given, long thought missing, presumed dead in a tragic accident over a decade ago. Gasps rippled through the room, the atmosphere swallowing breaths whole. The Bington family members recoiled, faces blanched, expressions caught between fear and confusion. "What are you doing here?" Danielle's voice was barely a whisper, each word heavy with disbelief. Claire stepped forward, urgency etched in her blue eyes, as fierce as the determination Danielle had summoned. "I had to stop this." Her voice echoed with a resonance that commanded attention, silencing the whispers. "There are secrets buried deeper than you understand. If you go through with the merger..." Secrets? Danielle felt a whirlwind of emotions. Love, anger, and betrayal. "You've been gone. How can you..." "Because I was taken. There are forces at play that you cannot begin to comprehend. Your success," Claire's voice cracked, urgency giving way to desperation, "is connected to their plans, to mine. You can't trust them." Time seemed to stretch. The room held its breath, the grandiosity of the mansion now suffocating. The Bington family, once her potential allies, now seemed to dissolve into sinister shadows. "Mom, what are you talking about?" Danielle felt the world slip beneath her, a tightrope unraveling with every word. "What has my life got to do with any of this?" "It's not just a merger, Danielle. It's a cover-up for something much darker. They're using you to secure power. You need to trust me." But before Claire could finish, a piercing sound jolted them, a phone ringing sharply amidst the confusion. An urgent, insistent tone. Danielle's gut tightened. It was the ringer of the mansion's wall phone, the one only Mr. Bington appeared to have access to. "Answer it!" someone shouted, but even as the suggestion echoed, the strange sense of inevitability loomed. Danielle stared at Claire, torn between wanting the comfort of an explanation and the unbearable truth wrestling at her core. As she edged toward the phone, waiting for the connection, the room felt splintered. The alliances she had relied on, now shattered glass. "Answer it, and everything will change," Claire urged, a glint of dread dancing in her eyes. "The truth doesn't wait." The crowd held its breath as Danielle's fingers hovered over the receiver, the air thick with anticipation. What awaited her on the other end? A revelation, a threat, or perhaps the undoing of her carefully constructed world. The silence once filled with uncertainty crackled as her heart thundered against a dawning realization. This was just the beginning. The silence grew deafening, as if the mansion itself held its breath. Danielle's fingers hovered over the receiver, her pulse a frantic rhythm against the backdrop of chaos. Claire's blue eyes, filled with urgency, pierced through the haze of disbelief. But just as she began to lift the receiver, the world shifted once more. Mr. Bington stepped forward, his face a mask of shock, twisted by a flicker of anger. "Daniel, don't!" But the phone rang again, its insistent tone slicing through the tension. And then, without warning, an electrical surge coursed through the air. A sudden jolt that sent a hair-raising crackle of energy echoing off the walls. The lights flickered ominously before plunging the room into darkness. Only the distant glow from a window illuminating the wreckage of what had just transpired. Panic erupted as people stumbled over one another, the echo of their shoes on the marble floor resonating like gunfire in the night. Danielle, fueled by raw instinct, snatched the phone from the wall, her grip icy and resolute. "Hello?" Her voice trembled, but determination carved through her fear. "Danielle?" The voice on the other end was deep and resonant, an unfamiliar timbre that struck cold panic in her heart. "You need to listen. It's about your past." "Who is this?" she demanded, her breath coming short. "Someone who knows what really happened to your mother. Someone who knows the truth about you." A collective gasp rose from the assembled guests, astonished and drawn into the coils of suspense. Danielle's heart thundered in her chest. "What truth?" "Your mother's disappearance wasn't an accident, and neither were the events leading to it. You're not who you think you are." The room blurred around her, her thoughts swirling like a tempest. "What are you saying?" Her voice broke, edged with desperation. Footsteps echoed, and Claire lunged forward, desperately reaching for the phone. "No, you can't!" But it was too late. A flicker of recognition flickered across Claire's face, shadows passing through her features. Then, more than surprise, fear. "Get away from her!" "Danielle," the voice continued, ignoring Claire's cries. "You were part of something bigger. Your mother had enemies. They have been watching you. They plan to use you as leverage." The statement hung heavy in the air, a gravitational pull that drew gasps from the onlookers. "Leverage?" The word fell from Danielle's lips like shattered glass. "Yes, your very existence is the key to unlock a power struggle that spans beyond a business merger. You are—" The line cut dead, silence crashing over the chaotic aftermath like a tidal wave. Everyone froze, eyes darting between Danielle and Claire, questions lingering like ghosts in the corners of the room. Claire's eyes widened, raw panic morphing into something darker. "You don't understand. You mustn't go into this world unprepared." "Prepared for what? For lies?" Danielle spat, feeling the ground shift beneath her very identity. "What do you mean I'm not who I think I am?" But before Claire could answer, a heavy thud echoed from the entrance. A figure slumped against the oak doors, blood pooling beneath him. A shadow that shifted in the dim light. As the crowd gasped in horror, Danielle stepped closer, her heart racing. The familiarity flickered like a faint candle's flame. It was one of the Bington family, a distant cousin she barely remembered. A man whose face was now a pallid mask of confusion and pain. "They said, they know you," he stammered as he fell forward, the sound of his body hitting the ground smothering any remaining composure. Confusion exploded in the room. What had just crashed into their lives? What pact had been formed under the guise of innocence? Danielle's world shattered, a kaleidoscope of betrayal and secrets spinning out of control. "What's happening?" she gasped, feeling the walls of her reality close in. As panic twisted through the gathering, Claire's voice broke through. "Danielle, you have to choose. Trust me or walk further into shadow." In that moment, the stakes soared. The truth was a ticking bomb, ready to redefine everything she thought she knew. But what would come next? Would she dare step closer to the brink, or retreat into the safety of the familiar? The choice loomed, heavy and suffocating, draping its shadows over them all. The tension constricted like a vice, the air thick with dread, as Danielle stared down at the unconscious figure of the Bington cousin. Panic, rippling through the crowd, froze time in that opulent room, each breath seeming to hold the weight of unspoken fears and secrets unraveling at the seams. Claire's frantic gaze traveled between Danielle and the fallen man. Urgency painted her features as shadows flickered from the dying light. "Danielle, the time has come to decide. There are dangers beyond what you can imagine." Claire's voice wavered, heavy with a mix of fear and resolve. But before Danielle could respond, the man groaned, struggling to lift his head. Blood coated his pale skin, glistening under the dim light, stark against the polished marble. "It's not safe. You don't realize what's happening," he croaked, his eyes darting wildly. A sharp gasp erupted from a corner of the room, where Mr. Bington stood, his face shifting from shock to fury. "Enough! This is a family matter!" Danielle felt the walls of her carefully constructed world crashing down, a fortress of certainty eroded by the pitiless tide of revelation. "Family?" she spat, incredulous. "How can any of this be about family when everything's built on lies and betrayal?" Before her voice could settle, a sudden commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. The grand oak doors slammed open, and a figure stormed in. A tall man clad in an immaculate suit, his sharp features aglow with an unsettling confidence. Enough of this charade, he declared, his voice booming, silencing the chaos that reigned moments before. Danielle's heart raced. There was something unnerving about the way he held himself, a magnetic aura of authority that made her instincts scream danger. "Who are you?" she demanded, stepping forward despite the trepidation clenching at her gut. "Let's skip the pleasantries. I'm Malcolm Trent, and I've come to collect what is rightfully mine." He scanned the room, eyes glinting with ambition as he settled on Danielle. "And that, my dear, includes you." A collective murmur stirred among the guests, a tremor of fear rippling like an electric current. "Collect?" Claire's voice ricocheted with disbelief. "What do you mean?" Malcolm's smile twisted into something predatory. "Your mother was a pivotal pawn in a game that has only just begun. And you, Danielle, are the queen who will restore order." Danielle's mind spiraled. "Restore order? I have no part in this." But Malcolm stepped closer, a predator circling its prey. "You think you are simply chosen? That your success is mere coincidence? Your entire life has been a carefully orchestrated deception." "Enough," Claire interjected, desperation etching her features into anguish. "You have no right to bring this to her." Malcolm's laughter echoed through the room, dark and mocking. "Oh, Claire, sweet Claire, of all the roles you played, did you truly believe you could keep the truth from her forever?" His next words sliced through the tension like a knife. "Danielle, your father wasn't just any man. He was a key player in a consortium that sought power beyond wealth. You were born into this world of shadows, and the moment you chose to succeed in business, you sealed your fate. You are destined to take your place at the helm." As the weight of his words crashed over her like ice water, Danielle recoiled, her breath hitching in disbelief. No, this can't be true. But it was as if a dam had burst open. Memories of furtive discussions, whispered codes, and half-answered questions swirled back. Her mother's protective instincts that now felt like shackles binding her to a destiny she never asked for. "Danielle," Claire's plea rang out. "You must listen. Trust me." "No," Malcolm shot back, his voice a low growl. "She must decide for herself, stand with us, or be consumed by the forces trying to bring her down." In that moment, the chandelier trembled once more overhead, a warning of unrest yet to come. The reckoning unfurled, and the choice loomed large, insidious in its promise. Danielle felt the walls closing in, each heartbeat echoing louder than the last. Trust her mother, or embrace the cryptic man who claimed her fate was entwined with darkness, a legacy she had never chosen but could no longer escape. "Choose, Danielle," Malcolm urged, his eyes locking onto hers. "The path you walk will either lead to your ruin or your destiny. The time is now." A final gasp, collective and chilling, filled the air as Danielle faced the bitter reality. The world she thought she knew was drowning in deception, and the true cost of her identity was about to be unveiled. But at what price? The air crackled with tension, a thick electric charge wrapping around Danielle like a vice, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Malcolm's commanding presence loomed large, an iron gauntlet tightening over her life, while her mother's frantic gaze begged her to see the truth. The room teetered on a precipice, a boiling cauldron of secrets just waiting to overflow. "Choose, Danielle," Malcolm pressed, his words plunging deeper than she could have anticipated. The room held its breath, eyes fixated on her, as if her decision would ignite a dormant storm. She could already feel the tidal wave of uncertainty crashing against her resolve. Just then, an unexpected sound cut through the heavy. Then, in the blink of an eye, the oak doors swung open again, this time with a force that reverberated through the room. A crew of officials, clad in dark uniforms, stormed in, faces grim, expressions hard. "Everyone stay where you are," one barked, a megaphone clutched tightly in his grasp, splintering the moment's heavy tension. "What's happening?" someone whispered, fear prickling through the crowd like static electricity. Malcolm's confident facade fractured, his eyes narrowing as the officers approached. "This isn't your jurisdiction," he spat, the heat creeping into his voice. "You have no authority here." But the lead officer, unfazed, kept his gaze locked on Danielle. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you urgently. You're in grave danger." "Me?" The word escaped her lips in a breathless whisper. But she felt the weight of fate shift beneath her, precarious and unpredictable. Claire stepped between her daughter and the officers, protectively, yet her expression mirrored the gravity of the situation, fear intertwining with a fierce maternal instinct. "Get away from her!" Claire fought to keep her composure, but an undercurrent of panic threaded her voice. "Whatever you think you know." "Claire Given," the officer interrupted, grim and unyielding. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and endangerment." Gasps echoed around the room as the reality of those words crashed over them like ice water, shocking, shattering. "What?" Danielle's heart raced. "Mom, this can't be." "No!" Claire's shock painted her pallid face with distress. But the officers moved closer, their resolve unshakable. "Danielle, listen to me! I can explain!" In that very moment, a sudden movement caught Danielle's eye. The fallen man flickering back to life, eyes wide, body convulsing as if awakening from a nightmare. "They're coming for him too," he choked, blood still pooling ominously beneath him. "You have to. You don't understand. The truth." "Truth?" Malcolm interjected, his arrogance dissolving into raw anger. "You dare bring questions of truth into this mess?" The officers ignored him, their focus unwavering on Danielle. "You have to come with us. There's more at stake than you realize." Desperation clawed at her insides. Her world tilted as the pieces began to shift underfoot. Everything she thought she knew about her mother was unraveling. And now the man on the floor seemed to share the burden of secret knowledge. "You all knew," she breathed, feeling betrayal cut deep. "You knew about this. All of you were in on the lies." "Danielle, please." Claire's voice trembled. "It's not what you think." The urgency in the officer's tone cut through the confusion. "Ma'am, we don't have time. They're coming, and you need to be safe." "Safe From what? She cried. Threads of reality, stretching taut, begging to break. Chaos hovered like a wraith, and just when she thought she might grasp the truth, another thunderous sound rumbled from outside. The door shuddered, and as if on cue, shadows began to cascade through the shattered remains of their fragile sanctuary. "We don't have time for this," Malcolm snapped, fierce desperation lining his features as he reached for Danielle's arm. "You'll regret this." She flinched away, but the man's grip was like steel, and in that moment of panic, an undeniable realization began to claw its way up from deep within her. A hidden truth, a concealed identity spiraling to the surface. The fragments of her life began to align in a way she had never anticipated, each piece revealing more than she was prepared to accept. "Danielle," Claire pleaded, eyes brimming with unspoken secrets. "You need to know." But before she could finish, the door burst open again, splintering against the wall, revealing a figure clad in a dark coat, a face obscured by shadows, but familiar in a way that sent a chill down Danielle's spine, like an echo of the past resurfacing. And then the world fell away, plunging into an abyss of unrecognizable truths, promises shattered, destinies entwined within a web of chaos. Danielle's heart raced with dread as the figure stepped forward, words poised to unravel everything she believed. "Hello, Danielle." The mysterious presence spoke. The air thickened, pressing down on Danielle like an iron shroud as the figure stepped forward, poised on the edge of recognition. "Hello, Danielle," the voice whispered, a tone woven with familiarity that twisted her gut into knots. Her heart quickened, thrumming like a trapped bird in her chest, desperation clawing at her throat. The shadows contorted, revealing not only the face she half remembered, but the crushing weight of a past she had fought, safely buried. Before she could fully process or respond, Malcolm lunged forward, his anger sharpening into a weapon. "Who are you to interrupt?" he spat, venomous, anxiety lacing his words. But the figure's presence stripped him of authority, challenging him in a way that left the ostentatious room shadowed in uncertainty. The figure took another step. Chloe cried, her voice urgent and raw, like a crescendo building toward an inevitable climax. "I know what's happening. They're not just after you. They want to control everything, Danielle." Confusion morphed into horror, freezing every onlooker in place. Claire, Malcolm, the officers, all witnessing an unraveling that felt impossibly personal. "Chloe?" Danielle's voice trembled, a lifeline push-pulling between joy and dread. "But I thought you were gone for good." "I was," Chloe replied, her expression a tapestry of pain and resolve. "I had to disappear, to protect you, to protect all of us." "Protect us how?" Danielle pressed, feeling the threads of her reality fraying. Anger intertwined with the yearning to believe in something, anything other than betrayal. "They are using power struggles and corporate warfare as a facade. There's a much darker game at play, involving our families. You're connected to all this in ways you don't even realize." Before Danielle could process the implications, a sudden blast of chaos erupted at the entrance. Dark-suited figures, hidden under the cloak of authority, poured in like a storm, eyes scanning the room with predatory focus. "Find her!" A clipped command rang out, echoing through the confusion. The lead officer's features twisted in urgency as he locked his gaze on Danielle, realization dawning. "We need to get you out now," he barked, drawing closer as adrenaline surged through the thrumming crowd. Panic radiated, the shockwaves trembling in every eye, every whisper, thickening the atmosphere. Malcolm's facade cracked, the bravado bleeding away as he backed up, visibly shaken. "This isn't just about you," but Chloe interjected, her voice rising above the din, laced with defiance. "It's about your father, Danielle. He's not just a businessman. He's connected to something bigger. We all are. Surveillance, control. Your mother was involved in something that even she couldn't escape." Gasps rippled through the crowd, murmurs slicing through the stunned silence. "What do you mean?" Danielle's heart raced, an impending dread coiling tighter. "There's a ledger, a book of secrets that holds everything together. The reason for my disappearance, and the reason you must leave now." Chloe reached out, grabbing Danielle's arm. "If they find you before you understand, it'll be too late." A shattering realization clawed at the edges of Danielle's consciousness. Just as she felt an inkling of hope, another figure stumbled in, a woman, ragged and desperate, claiming the threshold of the doorway. An unrecognizable expression twisted her face. "You can't trust anyone," she shouted, bloodied and bruised, collapsing like a marionette cut from its strings. "What?" Danielle gasped, shock ripping through her, as eyes turned toward this new arrival, the embodiment of dread and the catalyst of chaos. In that moment, the shards of her life, once neatly framed, shattered anew. The truth was a labyrinth, far darker than she had imagined, and within its depths lay unforeseen connections, legacies intertwined in blood and betrayal unbeknownst to her. As sirens wailed outside and shadows moved in to claim the secrets, Danielle stood at a precipice, engulfed in uncertainty, forced to confront the depths of a legacy she had never wanted but could not escape. What was next? Allies or enemies? The truth or her destruction? The choice loomed heavy, a tempest ready to unleash its fury. The room quavered as the bloodied woman collapsed, the sound of her body thudding against the marble floor, breaking the fragile stillness. A gasp surged through the crowd, panic wrapping around them like a chokehold. "Get her out of here," someone shouted, but no one moved, their eyes glued to the unfolding horror. Danielle felt the world tilt dangerously on its axis, her heart pounding against her ribcage like a trapped animal. Chloe's grip tightened on her arm, urgency radiating from her. "We have to go. There's no time." "What's happening?" Danielle's voice trembled as she flicked her gaze from Chloe to her mother, to the still form on the floor, and finally to the officers, who remained poised and watchful, their resolve unyielding. But before anyone could respond, a deafening clash of metal rang out, cutting through the chaos like a sharp blade. The massive windows along the hall suddenly shattered, a rain of glass falling like deadly confetti as armed men, dressed in tactical gear, burst into the room, storming past the officials, their eyes glinting with ruthless intent. "Protect the target," one of them commanded, and the air whirled with the sound of chaos erupting like a thunderstorm. "Run!" Claire's voice screamed, snapping Danielle from her paralysis. But the commands were lost in the panic that swept over the gathering. Malcolm was moving now, his facade of confidence replaced by a visceral fear that twisted his features. "You'll regret this!" He flung himself toward the figures, but they brushed him aside, advancing with singular purpose. "Danielle," an officer shouted, breaking through the din. "This way!" But just as she turned toward the man, the bloodied woman gasped for breath on the floor and spoke, her voice a haunting whisper that cut through all the noise, somehow commanding attention. "You must listen. I am." But the words fell away as a loud crash rocked the ground beneath her, sending ripples of fear through the crowd. The lights flickered, casting erratic shadows that danced across terrified faces. "Get her out!" one of the officers shouted again. But suddenly, the bloodied woman seized Danielle's wrist with a fierce grip. "Listen," she gasped, panic threading through her words. "You're in danger. I'm your sister." The room fell deathly quiet, the air twitching with disbelief. Danielle stared, her mind racing, her heart skidding to a halt. What? The reality of the claim slammed into her, tearing at the edges of her understanding. "That's impossible." "It's true," the woman insisted, her voice a frayed whisper, the urgency coloring her features with desperate truth. Chaos spiraled outward, but it felt as though time had halted. The pulse of the room stilled under the weight of revelation. "They're coming for us, specifically for you. You're at the center." "No," Claire cried out, rushing forward to shield Danielle. But the woman's eyes held a dark knowing, something they all lacked. "They're lying to you. I was taken after our father." Her breath hitched, eyes flaring with unshed tears, a dam of emotions ready to burst. "You're not safe. You need to trust me." "Enough of this," Malcolm shouted again, scrambling to regain control. But the authority had shifted, the dynamics fracturing like the shattered windows surrounding them. "Yes," the officer shouted back, his voice raw with urgency. "We're not safe. We've been monitoring their activities." "They're not just a corporation. They're a syndicate that wants total control." "No," Claire interrupted, her voice barely a whisper, crumbling with the weight of truth she had tried to protect. "We can't expose any of this. They'll kill her." The room erupted in disarray once more. The tactical men encircled them, weapons drawn, eyes scanning for threats, and each face carried the weight of unspoken resolves. Across the room, Chloe flinched and whispered harshly, "Everything you thought was real is a lie, Danielle." But as the world spiraled into chaos, a realization clawed its way into clarity. The very foundation of her existence was an elaborate construct teetering on the brink of ruin. It was as if the walls of her life were tumbling down around her, a life built upon untruths and shadows lurking just beyond perception. "Danielle, we have to go," Chloe pleaded, breaking the momentary silence. But something deeper tugged at Danielle, something hidden in the turmoil. A question lingered in her heart, reverberating through the shattered echoes of her life. What else don't I know? But before any answers could emerge, the tactical men surged forward, their intentions made crystal clear, their grip cold and unyielding. And in the heart of the oncoming storm, a profound reckoning began. Her very identity shattered like the glass around her, reshaping everything she ever believed. "Step back!" A commanding shout rang in stark contrast to the chaos, the voice belonging to none other than Mr. Bington. The room tensed with disbelief. What game was he playing? And just like that, in a space filled with terror and revelation, the truth held its breath, all poised to unfold in unexpected ways, leaving nothing but the question: who could she trust now? The room crackled with a tension that felt electric as Mr. Bington stepped forward, his face twisted into a mask of grim determination. "You don't understand what's at stake here," he said, his voice laced with urgency. The tactical men shifted, their piercing gazes flicking from him to Danielle and back, a palpable threat hanging in the air like an unspoken challenge. Danielle felt her heart race, the pounding sound in her ears drowning out the chaos that swirled around her. "And what is at stake, Mr. Bington?" she shot back, her voice steadier than she felt. "The truth or your control?" His smile was thin, an inception of desperation glaring through. "Both. You have power you haven't even begun to comprehend, and they want to harness it. But we are not your enemies." A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Fear and confusion painted across their expressions like a darkened canvas. The shadows deepened, crawling closer, as if the very walls listened intently to their exchange. "Maybe we should just leave," Chloe suggested, her eyes darting around the room as the reality of danger closed in. But before she could finish, the bloodied woman on the floor gasped, her eyes fluttering, alive, her voice crackling with urgency. "It's too late for you to leave. They're coming, not just for her, but for all of us." That instant, a shattering noise exploded from the rear entrance, like a gunshot, fragmenting the already tenuous reality around them. The tactical men whirled, weapons raised, just as a figure burst through the haze of confusion. It was another officer, sweat gleaming on his brow, eyes wide with fright. "They found us," he shouted, a warning cry pregnant with dread. Before anyone could respond, a loud crash split through the air as the ceiling overhead buckled, dust and debris cascading down like confetti thrown from a dark celebration. People screamed, some ducking for cover, while others pushed forward, desperation bleeding into chaos. In the midst of the pandemonium, as plaster and despair settled onto her shoulders like weights, Danielle accepted the thrumming reality. It was not just her truth teetering on the brink. It was the very foundation of her life, and now It threatened to collapse around her. But just as she began to comprehend the whirlpool of chaos, the officer's terrified shout regained her attention. "The ledger! It's gone! They're here for it, and they'll stop at nothing to get it." The bloodied woman stirred weakly. "We must hide it. That's the key. The ledger is the linchpin to everything." "Key to what?" Danielle cried, her voice rising above the chaos. "What is this ledger?" "It's your past, your mother." The woman's breath faltered as she strained against pain. "It holds secrets that could tear everything apart or bring it back together." A primary panic flared in the air, curling around her throat like a noose. As the chaos intensified, Mr. Bington's eyes, usually so cold and calculating, flickered with concern, a haunting transition that unsettled her. Suddenly, with a desperate lurch, he turned to her, his voice lowering. "You don't know, do you, who you really are? It's time to find out." Before Danielle could retort, the lights flickered again, plunging the mansion into shadows. In that moment of darkness, an unexpected voice broke through, a familiar taint of betrayal. "I knew you wouldn't last long, darling." Her heart plummeted as the figure materialized, a specter from her past, a shadow she had thought banished forever. "You?" "Yes, me. And it's time for you to take your place among us." Her world fractured as recognition hit harder than any blow. Her father, long thought dead, appeared before her, eyes glinting with a purpose that felt sinister and haunting. "Join me, Danielle. Together, we'll reclaim what is ours." In that breathless instant, every allegiance she thought she understood twisted into betrayal. The profound weight of another layered truth crashed upon her like a tempest. What did this mean for her mother? For Chloe? For the fragile truce they had fought to uphold? The implications rushed through her, a cacophony of unanswerable questions, as her reality spun out of control. Who could she trust? And what more lurked beneath those shadowy depths ready to emerge? As everything crumbled, the choice loomed more significant than ever. The path toward darkness, or toward a nebulous light that flickered just out of reach. The world held its breath, waiting for her response, fearing the consequences of a choice yet to be made. The air was electric, thick with revelation, as Danielle's father stood before her, an apparition woven from the fabric of nightmares. Each poisoned word dripped with a malice that sent shockwaves through her fragile composure. "Join me, Danielle. Together, we'll reclaim what is ours." Panic pierced through the crowd, eyes darting with disbelief, as if the world itself had tilted on its axis. Anger surged through her veins, fury battling the blood that congealed in her heart. "You've been alive all this time?" she spat, her voice guttural, trembling with betrayal. "And you let me believe you were dead?" Mr. Bington's expression shifted, curiosity mingling with concern. "This isn't the time for familial disputes," he urged, the tension thickening, palpable like boiling water threatening to overflow. But the figures surrounding them seemed suspended, frozen in a tableau of confusion and fear. Danielle felt Chloe's grip tighten on her arm, the urgency palpable. "This isn't just about you, Danielle. You have no idea what your father is involved in. Stay out of this," he barked, the venom in his tone slicing through the chaos. But before anyone could respond, a blinding light erupted from the far side of the spacious room. A deafening roar engulfed them, drowning out every sound, as if the very walls were rebelling against the truth that burst forth. The glass chandeliers above trembled violently, flickering like a dying flame, and then exploded. Shattered, glittering shards rained down, scattering across the marble floors like falling stars, as guests shrieked in horror, ducking for cover. Amid the chaos, a figure darted in from the entrance, cloaked in moving shadows. It moved with the fluidity of a specter, weaving effortlessly through the confusion. "Danielle!" A voice shouted, urgent and commanding, "You're not safe." The identity of the newcomer crystallized suddenly, tearing through the fog of panic. It was Malcolm's sister, Vanessa, the elusive figure who had vanished from their lives, rumored dead, presumed untouchable. "They're coming for more than just the ledger," she cried, her breath hitching as she cleared the distance toward her. "There's a price on your head." "What?" The words slipped out, disbelieving and stunned, as a sudden rush of adrenaline coursed through her. Vanessa took a breath. Urgency etched across her face. "Your father, he's not just a businessman. He is orchestrating a war, leveraging your existence to keep his enemies at bay." The revelation hit her like a bat to the chest. "You don't know anything about my life," she snapped. But doubt curled around her thoughts like a snake. But before their dynamic could salvage itself, another explosion erupted outside, sending vibrations through the floor. More shadows poured into the room, dark figures clad in armor. Their intent clear, their eyes hungry. Chaos reigned anew as whispers turned to screams. And suddenly, it wasn't just her family caught in the web. It was the very foundation of trust, rebuilt on lies. "Danielle!" Claire's frantic voice cut through the uproar, pulling her focus back. "You have to leave now." Feeling the ground shift beneath her feet, coherence splintered into shards, the revelations bombarding her like a tempest. Her father's betrayal intertwined with Vanessa's return, layering deceptions thick enough to choke on. "No more running, Danielle," her father growled, stepping closer, icy authority emanating from him. "This is your destiny." But it all hung precariously in the balance as the world crumbled, daring her to choose. Trust the truth she barely recognized, or embrace the heritage steeped in danger. And just then, the floor quaked violently, parting as if the foundation itself wished to reveal secrets buried deep. A hidden door sprung open under the weight of nostalgia, revealing a dark staircase descending into the unknown. "Now!" Claire shouted, panic rising as the figures outside breached the threshold, shadows licking at the threshold of their world. "Danielle, there's no time!" Vanessa yelled, eyes reflecting the glittering shards of glass, urgency clawing at her resolve. With the choice laid bare before her, and uncertainty swirling in her chest, Danielle felt the gravity of her existence converge upon a singular, terrifying truth. Who was she truly, and how far must she fall to uncover the spine of a legacy coated in treachery? The path before her unspooled, fear and power intertwined. Into darkness she might have to leap, or risk losing everything she held dear in a world gone mad. Danielle stood at the edge of the dark staircase, fear and determination battling within her. The chaos behind her felt like a tidal wave, but she had to make a choice. The noise faded as if the world had all but disappeared. She turned to her mother, Claire, who had fear etched across her face. "Mom, I need to know," Danielle said, her voice shaky but firm. "Is my past really what they say it is?" Claire stepped forward, her eyes pleading. "Yes, but it doesn't define you. Your future is yours to shape. You have the power to create a new legacy." Danielle took a deep breath, summoning courage from the depths of her being. The family she had known had become a storm of lies, but she could choose to step away from that storm. "I'm done with running," she declared, thoughts of her father fading into echoes of betrayal. "I will find my own way." Chloe squeezed her hand. "We have your back, whatever happens. We stick together." Pause. The panic swirling around them seemed to thicken, rising like smoke as the tactical men advanced. Mr. Bington stepped in front of them, hands raised as if to shield them. "You can't just leave," he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. "You're part of something bigger." "No," Danielle said, shaking her head. "I'm not a pawn in anyone's game. This is my life." She glanced back at the bloodied woman on the floor, who was staring up with wide eyes, filled with an understanding that cut deeper than words. With one last glance at the room, at the faces belonging to family and foes alike, Danielle took a step down the staircase. The shadows pulled her in, whispering promises of freedom. But just as she reached for that freedom, her father's voice broke through, low and dangerous. "You'll regret this, Danielle. You've made your choice." She didn't look back. Instead, she gripped Chloe's hand tighter. Together, they disappeared into the darkness below, an escape into the unknown. As they descended, the chaos above became muffled, and for the first time since the night had begun, Danielle felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. She was shedding the weight of her past. She didn't know what awaited them below, but she felt lighter, free from secrets that had bound her for too long. They moved quickly, the air fresh with possibilities. And in that darkness, Danielle smiled, her heart racing with newfound strength. Back above them, the room erupted, but the echoes of her past faded into the distance. The future awaited, uncertain but bright. In that moment, they stepped beyond the threshold where darkness met light, ready to forge their path together. Above the sounds of panic, a soft whisper lingered. "This isn't over yet." You must subscribe now, and don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. And share this video right now with at least 5 friends who need to know how this ends. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait another second.